and welcome back to the Anthrozoology podcast. Hello, my name's Sarah, and I'm looking at unconventional shark-human relationships.
I'm Michelle, and my research focuses on pachyderm-human interactions and how the health and welfare of captive individuals impacts that of their wild counterparts.
And I'm Chris, and my research focuses on cats, cat-human relations, and cat cultures.
Today, we're joined by Altamush Saeed, an interspecies justice lawyer, educator, and non-profit leader. From co-founding Pakistan's first disaster-zone farm animal shelter to leading massive relief efforts that have helped both people and animals, to teaching the country's first animal law course, Altamush is pioneering a new way of thinking about justice that includes humans, animals, and the environment combined. His work has been recognised internationally, and he's published on the urgent need to protect animals in disasters. We're thrilled to have him on the podcast today. Welcome, Altamush. We're very excited to talk to you over the next 2 episodes about your work. Maybe you can first tell us a little bit about yourself and your extensive work with animals in Pakistan.
Well, firstly, thank you so much, Sarah, for the wonderful introduction. Um, I think we all do it because we love our work. There's literally no other reason. And when I started this, originally I was doing human rights work because from a very contextual perspective, um, Pakistan is it's the animal rights movement is very new. I would say the human rights movement still is new here. We do speak about a lot of rights, but given our economic situation, given we were colonized, and given a different kind of a vision, uh, it took us a lot of time to understand who we really were as a people. And a lot of things were left behind. So, being a good person is, I think, the very basic that we all can do. And initially, that's why I started with human rights work because I felt that was, my calling or something. And we did that for a very, very long amount of time. We still do it. So, this was a natural progression. But it was until 2018 when I was rescued by a cat. Uh, Mentally, not physically. So she came into our lives in 2018, just on her own, and she changed everything. At that point, I didn't know spay neuter laws or spay neuter, how did that work? Didn't even know the word. So she went out and came back pregnant. She gave birth to 5 babies. They're all at home with us. That was 2018. And every day that cat teaches me something new about people, humans, rights, animals, stuff and stuff. So she's my greatest mentor in my life. And that one cat is literally responsible for everything that I've done and I will do. So her name is Mao. So this is for her and everything she has taught me. And then eventually, in this natural progression, came COVID, which happened in 2020. And at that point, I was still a law student. So we started doing a project across the country for mostly humanitarian relief. But we started a very tiny project that we felt that, dogs in our country, most of them are strays. I don't like that term, so I would use the term community. So those community dogs only, relied on leftovers, as you can understand. So we felt that when the restaurants and everything was closed, these innocent beings also needed food. So we started a small, SASE based one or empathy for the voiceless campaign for dogs. A very small effort, but for me it was pretty big because I think feeding one dog is pretty awesome. So we did that on a very localized level. And eventually in 2022, there were floods in my country. At that point, I knew what I was doing. I mean, it took me I would say 25 years to understand what it was. And in that floods, we wholeheartedly rescued not only humans but animals in the best way possible that we could. We rescued around 8,000 farm animals and we created a dedicated shelter for them. And the people, we also wanted to teach them. So we started a small school literally under a tree because we didn't have the resources. And we taught the children about animals through art mostly because as you can understand trauma is something these people were going through, and if I had the traditional pedagogical material, I would have not made them feel like kids. I think we often make that mistakes with ourselves as well. So we did that, and at the same time, the food that we offered was completely plant-based. I was not trying to make them go vegan, but I wanted them to understand that food has a direct nexus with climate change, as we go on understand. So the floods were caused by that. So we felt that we should, do the right thing, and we did that. It was a very good project. And eventually, right after I came back home, finally finishing my 3 masters in a row from the US. And I wanted to serve my country because this was so new, and it has, risen in the last 2 years. We have had an international animal environment rights conference that was at a national scale. It was attended by judges of my country and a lot of international speakers. I would love to have you next year if you can. We would love to, know different perspectives. Over 700 people attended it, and it started a movement building exercise in my country. Um, in the interim, I also started teaching because I think that's the best thing in the world. Um, Conversations just like these with students and helping them understand how to see everything differently or themselves differently. And I taught courses on international animal law. Interspecies justice is something that I, call myself. And so we also did courses on environmental law, covered wildlife, biodiversity, human rights as well, children rights. They're all very important to me. And in January, I will be teaching the first ever food system policy course in my country's history, because I feel people need to understand those things. So I haven't done much, but I genuinely believe that we need to think things from an interspecies or interdisciplinary perspective, because the way we are taught in school, or at least I had good education, the best one, I would say, and I'm very privileged, but it was still very one-dimensional. It was only about humans and anthropology and everything, which was something I learned in university. I didn't even know the word. Um, but we often make the same mistakes in animal rights work as well. We often isolate ourselves to just animals. And we have to understand that no, there are other beings in this planet as well. I'm not asking about balancing and everything, but I want people to connect those movements. And so is the case with the environment. So all the good people in human rights are working in their own box. They don't know there are allies out there they can work with. Same is the case with environmental rights people and animal rights people. We need to come together, and we need to fight those bad people who are, taking the rights of all of us. And in a way, we, honor everybody, and that's how we build a planet or a society where everybody is welcome regardless of who they are. Doesn't matter. And that's the kind of, that's my dream for my life, at least. And that's how I approach everything that I do. So it's been a pleasure, and I'm glad I know what I'm doing now. I didn't know that for a very, very long amount of time.
Wow, you're an absolute powerhouse of of achievements, and I'm just staggered by the amount of stuff that you've done. One question comes to mind. Obviously, having ideas and having thoughts of how to things can change. How do you get support? Who and how supports you so that you can actually put all these ideas into action, or how do you access your own strength in order to convince people to help you do all these changes?
I mean, initially it's a small group of crazy people who want to, make a difference. So we come together, do most of the brainstorming, but then we're able to somehow find resources. Now, I mean, initially it was really hard because I also hope you understand that animal rights, even though it's new in Pakistan, a major part of the world, or I would say every part of the world thinks that there is no animal rights in my country. So as a result, there's a huge disconnect. And often because of that, we don't receive international support. We don't have any international organization working in the country except Brooks, which works on donkeys, and there's nothing else. And it's a fragmented movement kind of a space as well. So, I mean, all of my hope comes from my cat, but now we have a lot of good support, and we have some people who work with us. My NGO, which is called Charity Doings Foundation, which I run with Ahmed Malik, who's my co-founder. We have around 30 to 40 people. And the new thing that I started 2 years ago, which was my country's first ever animal environmental law firm. It's just 4 people, and I'm doing most of the work because we don't have enough resources, but we're making a huge difference. We have filed around 16 to 20 cases just in this year. And it was the first time that happened in my country's history in 78 years that we have a spay neuter law in my province. Before that, used to shoot the dogs. They still do, but it's on a very localized level, and we're, fighting that in the court so implementation happens. So, I mean, I don't have a direct answer to your question, but I always, I am able to find support and I cannot explain that, but people just come together.
Can you just define for us, Pakistan's very large, about
Mm.
240 some million people, correct? How big are the
250.
provinces? I think that'll really help our listeners sort of get in their mind the scale that we're talking about.
So it's actually 250 million, not 140. So it's a big population, and there's a lot of diversity in culture. We have I would say two main languages. One of them is Urdu and the other one is English. But there are a lot of dialects. So there's like 97 dialects. So different languages, different cultures. And we have 4 provinces. Um, the one that I live in, Punjab, is the biggest one in population and resources. Then it's Sindh, which is towards the south end that connects to India and the Arabian Sea. There's Balochistan, which is huge, but it's very unpopulated and kind of like a no-go area, which connects to Iran and the Arabian Sea. And in the northwest, we have the KPK province, which is also very, very highly populated and is connected with China and Afghanistan. I am afraid I don't know the sizes, but it's not that big actually. But I mean, but it's not also small because the population is really, really high. We're like top 5. We are actually the 5th most populated country in the world after Indonesia.
Yeah, I just want to say that I love the connection you have with your cat. I'm a cat person, and I can totally relate to a cat being your inspiration, your grounding. But yes, my question is I wonder if you could share how you stay positive. How do you avoid burnout or manage compassion fatigue? That is something that plagues a lot of animal advocates and people that work on the front line. When faced with so much negativity, it can be really hard on the individual. Do you have any sort of words of wisdom in that respect?
Actually, I think the best thing to acknowledge, or when you're in a burnout stage or not feeling good, is to acknowledge it that you have it. Most people deny it. That's pretty basic. And talking to a person is actually the best thing possible. It's the most easiest kind of a therapy. But given I'm doing movement building work, I felt that this trauma thing is very common in my country. And right now we're still at the cats and dogs stage. We're very initial. And given how animal rights movements develop through history, it always starts with the animals that are closest to us, which is amazing, which is about cats and dogs. So most of the country is working on that, but we are trying to move the movement along for other animals as well. So in the interim, for fatigue and everything else, we have a community space. It's called Circle of Life. I started that like literally 4 months ago, and it's a therapy space. So we have a rented office where I do my legal work, and there's a huge room, like kind of like a community open safe space where we do kind of weird events. The first one we did was a trivia night on Harry Potter and other stuff. Then then we had an old game night, which are like traditional games that we had in Pakistan, like charades and other kind of things. We had a movie night, and we recently had a silent disco event. And shortly, we will have a therapy session as well, like with an actual therapist. It's because in many situations, I think it's also better that you don't call it therapy, just make it fun because we need some fun. And so that's kind of my idea, to bring people together and give them a safe space, because it helps me a lot as well. I do go to the events. So that's what I'm trying to do. I don't have an exact answer, but it really helps. And I just don't know. My brain is hardwired to think about others, so I'm always positive for reasons that I cannot explain.
Altamush, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, but the first one, you work with the teachings of Islam and animal rights. Really interested to understand that a little bit more, especially as you have done some work on factory farming and whether that's permissible within Islam or not. And can you tell us a bit of your thoughts about that, how they came about, and you know what your position is, and what your teachings to through your schools are going to be? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. And this is important because there's very few people who connect animal rights with Islam. And there are very, very few people who are Muslims and vegan as well. You don't have to be vegan, but you still have to have some heart for the animals. But it's still very, very low. The major reason for that is there's no structure, there's no text available out there for Muslims who want to, transition into going away from animals or other stuff as well. For example, it's not just being vegan, it's about maybe avoiding cosmetics that's made from animal experimentation or clothing or stuff like that. It can be different things that you can give up, or like not viewing animals from a human lens. I mean, that's pretty basic, like zoos and stuff. So, to counter that, I wanted to research on this topic because I was going through a personal transition as well. And eventually I learned that there's no mandatory requirement in Islam for you to eat meat. And there are direct requirements that you have to be merciful for them. And the whole religion is basically crafted around that idea about mercy. So it actually says in the book, the Quran, which is the primary text in our religion, that God has prescribed mercy towards himself. This is a very big statement because God is limiting himself to mercy, that he has to be, which is mind blowing. And secondly, the one thing that we are taught through culture and the way education works in my country, or I would say the world, is we're always given a human-centric perspective towards how we see things. So one of the dominant ideas in Islam is that we have dominion over everything, which is the basic anthropocentric idea, which is completely incorrect because the text actually says that we have been created as people who are responsible for managing everything. And the term in the Quran is called Khalifa, but what it really translates to is a person who is like a leader and who has a responsibility towards everything. They don't own it because it also says in the text that God, who owns everything, is the master of everything, and there cannot be two owners of the same thing. And eventually, in the environmental side of things, which is where factory farming comes in, is there are direct protections for the environment within the religion. And the way the text is crafted, it says that everything has been given to us as a form of a trust. And it's a legal concept, but it's also a very basic concept because in a trust there are two parties. One of them is the beneficiary, and one of them is the trustee. We are the trustee, and therefore we cannot be the beneficiary. The beneficiary is the environment and everything else that is around us. And there are also mentioned in the scripture that, if we violate this trust, we are going to cause major imbalances, which is climate change essentially. And that will lead to catastrophic changes in the world, which are disasters. And that's one part of it. But directly, it is a human right for everybody to have a safe and healthy environment. So the factory farming argument is triple layered. One of them is, of course, animal sentience, animals suffer. The second one is that it causes immense climate change impacts, which is bad for people working in that system, people living there, because you would not see privileged people living next to factory farming, which is a form of environmental racism. And lastly, there are rights for the environment itself as well, that it's been given to us in a trust. And fourthly, when you combine everything, even if you leave the animal argument out of it, fact that factory farming is causing climate change and therefore leading to disasters, which is resulting into human deaths, which is completely impermissible for you to do anything that harms another human being. That's just another extension of this argument. So in that framing, factory farming is completely impermissible from this perspective. And I have not even talked about the halal side of things. That's second. I can explain that, but halal in a nutshell is basically the process of how the slaughter is supposed to happen. And it also prescribes the same methods of mercy that I've mentioned before. And you have to be merciful to the animal because it can feel pain and suffer. And it also can feel joy as well, which is something we often ignore. We're always thinking about the negatives, but if an animal has the ability to suffer, then it also has the ability to be happy, right? We have to give them happiness. And lastly, there's another thing that's called tayyib, which is something that's even Muslims are not taught. So it's okay if you don't know that term, but I'm pretty sure you guys do. So the process for halal slaughter involves halal and tayyib. So while halal is the process, tayyib is basically the requirement to keep it clean and pure, which is the environmental right side of the commandment that comes in the way slaughter is supposed to happen. And while even without going into details, we all know the way factory farming works right now. It cannot be a pure or a clean method. There's a lot of emissions, there's a lot of dirt, there's a lot of diseases which we're seeing in people coming up. So from that perspective, it is also completely impermissible. So it's not just one argument, it's like six, seven. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but with a few other Muslim vegans, we are co-editing and writing the world's first book on veganism, animal ethics, and Islam. It will come out in a couple of years. We already have the contract. We're not making any money out of it because I'm pretty sure you have published books, but we want that knowledge to go out of it to the world and for Muslims to understand that there are different ways to see animals, and it has to be a non-human centric perspective. That can be anything, and it's on you and how far you want to go. And it's not just about not eating animals. It's just about the basic idea that they are animals and what does that really mean, which is what you guys do under anthrozoology. And I don't have a definition for that, but what I really feel is to see an animal from an animal's perspective. It can be different, but at least that's how I feel about it. And also additionally, my voice might not be that much relevant, but in the Islamic faith, there are these figures who are called imams, who are our faith-based leaders, such as there are pastors in Christianity and so forth and other religions. We are directly training the imams now. So we had our first training in February where we taught these imams about human, animal, and environmental rights. And we covered a lot of topics. For example, while we were covering animals, we personally felt that women rights should be covered. We personally felt that children rights should be covered as well, and we're constantly changing our syllabus because we need them to see from a holistic perspective on how to see life. And later, those imams would deliver Friday sermons, which are mandatory in our religion, and a lot of people listen to them, and and apologize for that. And whatever the imam says, people take that as legal, like legally true, and it is resulting into a lot of grassroots change. And now we're going to do another one of our sessions next month, training 25 more imams and hopefully creating a ripple effect in a different city. It will take effort, but I genuinely believe this will lead to a lot of groundbreaking change than all of my other work because this is very, very grassroots.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I have a little bit of an out there question, but I wonder if you have any insights in whether teaching these religious leaders is easier if they have a relationship with a companion animal. So if they have a cat or dog, do they accept it more readily because they already have experienced firsthand that sentience and that bond?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely. And 100% it does happen, but I have not seen an imam yet with a cat or a dog, which is really rare, but I will in some time. But what I did was I connected their connection to human rights. And I said that, if you feel pain and suffering for them, you should also feel pain and suffering for the animals and so on and so forth for the environment. So this particular group used to work on interfaith harmony between different religions. And when I said to them, interspecies should be a part of that as well. So they understood it. And that's how I made that connection with them. And we're working with them on a regular basis. Because one of the basic barriers, and I'm sure you've already thought of this question, how did you convince the imams to listen to you? It was because of this. Because that's the hardest part. And if you go wrong here, it can be a very tricky territory. And therefore it's advisable that if you don't know it properly, you should not do it. It can actually be very threatening to your own life because religious matters get very hot very, very fast, no matter what the religion. So you have to be very cautious because it affects people's actual feelings. So we are very careful on what we say, and we often try that the imams themselves make that connection. And this actually happened. I was doing one of the sessions, and one of the imams said that he felt really bad when the cows, who had just recently given birth, their milk was being taken away. And imam actually said that. I'm pretty sure he didn't understand what he was saying, but he did say it, and I was really, really happy.
Thanks for everybody for joining us today on the Anthrozoology podcast, and we look forward to continuing our conversation with Altamush next week. Thank you.